Chapter 7. The doctor lived in one of the slummier parts of the upper world, a place where gleaming chrome and sun-spangled glass gave way to dull metal and wood. But it was still superior in every way to subearth. It had all the basic amenities. He had made a tenuous living serving the baser needs of the uppers. When we had corresponded, I asked him details of his life. I was, after all, the government official and still had power over him. It fascinated me to know what went on in the shadier parts of our world. Most of what he said I still didn't believe. I hadn't ventured into subearth then. Not many uppers had. If they did, it was for nefarious reasons. But then I went down and down. The doctor, the ex-doctor, Alfred Krentz, told me how occasionally, very occasionally, upper women were impregnated by subs, either through relations or rape. They knew the score. They had to go underground, as I was going underground. And the doctor did admit to growing spare body parts from sub-tissue, though every upper thought, and quickly buried this thought, that the officers, the inner government, and the eluluk, the high government, were receiving organically grown replacement organs and limbs. We never thought things completely through. That logic could not be allowed. And why the hell should we have? We didn't want to be cast out. There were stories of uppers being thrown to the mercy of the subs if they asked too many questions. I could imagine their fate more than most. When I got to see the doctor, the balance of power between us had shifted. I could tell by his attitude. I could tell as soon as I showed him my toe and described the numbness that was creeping up my leg. But we had a kind of affection for each other. We shared some of the horror of a linked fate. Dr. Krentz lived his life cutting open scarred people. His house and the treatment rooms reminded me more of the subs' houses than our own. Yet there was a certain pleasurable grimness about him. I thought he enjoyed his shadowy life in some strange way. We greeted. Doctor. He nodded, did not, for security reasons, refer to me by my full name, and hardly by name at all. Intelligent, haunted eyes examined me behind the circular lenses of his glasses. It's strange that we meet this way, I said. Life is strange. You understand why I'm here? You're not the first, he smiled. Suddenly his slightly pudgy features were ignited in a kind of cold warmth. My big toe was revealed. As he pricked away at the skin, I learnt to my deepening horror that the toe next to it had also lost feeling. My ankles dulled of life. What is the life code? He asked. To exist, to maintain the laws, not to transgress the laws, to gradate, which means to accrue wealth, especially for shots, to increase, to have children, to know one's boundary. Good. I looked hard at him. You're not losing it yet. There's enough time. Do you know about the disease? Yes. What do you know? What I've seen, what I've been told, down there. Did they tell you about the mind? I said nothing. Wanted to know everything. The slow deterioration of the mind, the forgetting of a word, the mixing up of syllables, stuttering, thinking things you'd rather not think. Are you enjoying this? He shook his head. Strands of almost white blonde hair were stretched back across his skull. Then why are you telling me? To prepare you. For the worst, I blurted. For the worst. How do you know all this? You know you're not the first, he laughed. I had not seen him bare his teeth before, and I noticed they were discoloured and rather small. They've come to me when it's been too late, when the visions had pressed down on their sleeping brains, nightmares, when they had tried to act normally with their numbed flesh, smiling, hiding the fact that boiling water had spilt onto their skin, feigning pain if caught, blaming cuts and scabs on other diseases, saying nonsense and making it all a joke, then running away too late, running to me too late. Am I too late? I asked bravely. I don't know, he carried on. And they wouldn't have the credits to pay. He seemed to have a new habit. He rolled his head as if his neck ached. I began. He smiled again. I do know something else you must prepare for. His face became serious and his neck stiff. What? The catcher, he replied. After some moments I asked coldly, the catcher? You know, you must know. You work for the register. I work on the register, I said with some anger. Either way, he smiled. You know about the catcher. But that stuff isn't true. You try it. You'll see. What happens to all those that run? Think your governments let them disappear? You know better than that. I know what happens to the children, that's all. Come off it. What you do to the children is bad enough, but at least it's quick, I suppose. Again he rolled his neck nervously. We can't take risks. You could check them out, put them in quarantine, give them shots, flush out the bad blood, if there was any. Spare them from the rooms, give them a chance. They're children, for dag's sake. I thought about what the ex-doctor had said. I hadn't expected this kind of compassion from him, but it only needed one mutation, one chance crossover into our world, and we would be... He was wrong. He must have known he was wrong. What we did was cruel, I realised, but cruel for a good reason. That's the way it had always been explained. If the disease mutated in such a way that it could be spread by mucus, then the common cold would wipe us out, wipe out even the subs, wipe out every child. Yet I'd allowed a little baby to get through the system. Why just him? Why not every child? Inside I felt both bad and good. No, the disease is virulent, you know. Anything could happen. No risks. What about the uppers who go down, eh? What about the transgressors who hold good government jobs? What about you? Haven't I paid the price? I shouted. I'm not sure anymore. Not sure. Everything seemed simple enough not so long ago. But you think the government lets the transgressors slip away? Some. What difference does it make if they're doomed to subearth? That's what happens to them. Ripped apart. I know. Yes, he paused. You've been down there. How else? The disease is here. It's with us already. I've told you. You know that's the way I make my money. Mostly. If it's going to mutate, it's going to mutate. His eyes pinned me. You don't care? Why should I? Again he rolled his neck. I should have... I stopped myself quickly and thought how I should have shocked him. Listen, he said, the shots that are being sold now, in 10 years, probably less, they'll be useless. They'll offer no protection. Your child will be exposed. No. Yes. You want to know something? What? I spat. This government, your government, is already experimenting on subs. No. It's true, I know. Believe me or not. I'm useful sometimes. That's how I live. The register comes in handy sometimes. Some of the babies don't even enter the white rooms, or they enter their own special white rooms. You've never mentioned anything like this before. I don't believe you. Who cares what you know now? I'll try and save you, but you'll never see things the same way, will you? And you'll want to protect your child. Hand swept a loose strand of hair backwards. I could hardly believe his words. The government regularly experiments on the subs. It's looking for a stronger shot. It uses the N subs and some of the babies whose only fault is to have been born, and the transgressors you track down. The ones that run are even more useful to the government. Uppers with the disease are valued, and that's where Mr. Catcher comes in, and his beasties, wraths. And you know too, those little things don't even kill you, not if you're an upper. No. When they cut you up and examine the spread of the disease, those bits of you that can still feel, those bits of your brain that can still think, are aware of it all. You see how more humane it is to use the N subs? For a while I just sat. I was diseased. I needed a cure. I needed Dr. Alfred Krentz more than ever. The myth of the catcher was reality. The crawlies, the beasties, the rats, they were true, yet I could hardly believe. But the power between us was all with him. I only had an act of generosity between me and even that act was probably futile. This doctor was probably fully known to security. At least I could not call his bluff. Will you help me? Yes. Why? The doctor went silent suddenly. Why? I repeated. Because you know the truth. You can change things. How? You can, like me, lessen the suffering. He paused a moment, seemed wistful, then pulled himself back to reality. The problem is to attack the disease simultaneously, he said. We have to stop the spread to the body and through the chemicals of the brain. We have to hide the damage so far. Your wife isn't suspicious? No, not about a disease. Good. Now tell me something else, he began. Why were you in subearth? How did you get the disease? I was bitten. I didn't transgress. It must have been a crawly, a damn spider, a dag arachnid, not a beastie. No, not a beastie. A beastie's bite would have spread quicker and you'd have been tracked down. You're lucky, he smiled. Maybe I can stop the effect of a crawly. It's easier than the poisoned blood of a sub. And? Why were you there? It's another story, I began. Lie down. I'm going to have to do some more cuts. Use things that are going to hurt. Hurt when they find the borders of feeling, and I'm going to have to inject some stuff into your brain. No, I said. Tell me your story. Concentrate. Tell me your story while I get things prepared. I haven't much to knock you out. I need you half with me. I need to hear the workings of your mind. Listen, you're lucky. Remember? No credits, I said. The disease is relatively fresh, but you have to be brave. Your old life has gone, Adam X. And he used my name for the first time. Be strong. Take the pain now while you can. As he approached with the length of fibre-thin needle, I began to blurt out my story. Sweat soaked my skin. The needle kissed my flesh. When I came round, I was in a different room and strapped to a hard surface. Pain seemed to travel in waves down my leg, and my mind kept piecing together an image some other portion of my brain could not comprehend. Being strapped down, I wasn't able to see anything other than the ceiling above. Bending my fingers brought good blood flow. My toes only partially responded. Blood travelled slowly through my ankle, and an intense pain throbbed in both feet. Eventually I managed to kill most of my toes, but a wave of pain lapped around the numbness, and for a moment, an intense lightning moment, I felt the contour of my dead toes too. My forehead was strapped down, as were my feet and wrists. A strap pressed across and against my chest and upper arms. Moving as much of my body as I could, I also felt a restriction across my thighs. But it was the curious waves of images through my mind that frightened me and made me feel nauseous. Fragmentary pieces of a particular image swam in confusion. Blinking my eyes, I concentrated on a crack running across the ceiling. Pain expressed in thoughts becomes abstract, but with the reassembling of the picture in my mind came the memory of pain, except the memory could only be found through metaphor. The thought of the pain made me shudder inside the straps, but to describe it was like having been turned inside out and the guts and organs squashed by rough hands. It was like a razor-sharp needle piercing an unblinking eye. But not only was there the extremity of pain, there had been its continuance also. I wasn't even sure if the pain was real or imaginary. It didn't matter. Perhaps my brain had been probed. The sense of the pain existing for time stretched was harder for me to capture. It seemed as if when one prolonged sting became too much, I had shifted, mentally or physically, into the merest fragment of relief. Then a different but equally terrible pain would engulf me. How physical is any pain? Yes, we feel, but where do we feel? The body's hurt is managed by the mind. The mind is terrified, the body suffers. And when the pain is finished, then the bodily pain is quickly usurped by its painful memory. The image in my mind was forming well enough for me to see the contour of a face, and then to see that the face was female. By then, localized pain was throbbing warmly around the base of my big toe where foot flesh existed, and pain washed in from the top of my ankles. Both feet ached. The face kept sharpening its image. The face kept blurring and focusing, pulsating in my mind. The pain I felt then was transmitted to my stomach. I felt nauseous, wanted to rip open my belly and pull out the shit. I wanted to empty my belly of everything and uncoil the intestines. The sick feeling seemed eternal. And then the absolute terror of being held restricted hit me, and that was the worst hurt of all. But it seemed the moment of this realization brought the face to clarity. And it was Z. It was Z who was watching me from within my mind, and some part of me was watching her watching me. Z, implacable, inscrutable, deep eyes, bold and strongly delineated. Z inside me. Dr. Krentz came looming over my terrified eyes. Finished, he said. Finished? Yes. And, I asked, sweating. And, you mean, has it worked? I don't know. When will you know? I said, pulling at my restraints. I don't know. Release me, I said. But it isn't finished, he said. But you said it was finished. That part, he said, rolling his neck. Which part? The first part, he said. No more, please, no more. This is nothing, he said. Nothing to the pain of the disease. I was helpless. He disappeared from my vision. My heart was racing and my lips dry. I could feel my heart swollen and itching. Then he came back. This won't hurt as bad, he said. My eye watched the needle turn from its long, thin shaft into an invisible point. I sensed the point come close to my eyeball, and then the infinity of pain. A grain of sand was rubbed into the eye of my mind.